And thanks again, David. It's good to know people in high places. Okay.
Hang on one second. We want to make
Okay.
sure that the YouTube stream is live online. So I'm looking over at another computer just to make sure that our faces all pop up.
While you're sitting on that bus?
Yes, hang on. I was telling them I have to move myself over to this side.
Oh, there you go.
So it looks like I am sitting on the bus.
Yeah.
All
Cool.
right. Okay, we are now live and streaming on YouTube. So go ahead and start.
Fab. It is 9:30 a.m. and I would like to call to order the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee of Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. Before we begin, please note that this meeting is live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Members of the public are encouraged to watch and listen to the meeting on YouTube or by dialing into 415-569-6446 for the audio of this meeting. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting and have not done so already, please do call 415-569-6446 again, and let the facilitator know that what items you would like to speak to today. I appreciate everyone's patience as we move through today's meeting. Madam Secretary Amoret, please begin by calling the roll.
Thank you, Chair Garbarino. And just a reminder to the folks calling in today, I just want to remind everyone that each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to provide public comment. Just as a note, then I'll start with roll call. Thank you. We'll start with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Conroy. Director Conroy is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Parr.
Present.
Director Rabbit.
Here.
Director Thier.
Here.
Vice Chair Maston.
Here.
Chair Garbarino.
Here.
And President Tiria.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum. You are also just a committee of the whole. Also on this call, you can see is Director Hill, Director Brodoni, and Director Snyder. So you have 10 today. I'm going to confirm staff. Dennis Mulligan's on the line.
Present.
There you go. Auditor Controller Joe Wire is not here. So we have Acting Auditor Controller Jennifer Minucci.
Good morning.
Morning. Eva Bar-Furbish.
Present.
Thank you. Kim Manolius.
Good morning.
Dave Rivera.
Morning, present.
Thank you. Mona Babauta.
Good morning, present.
Morning. Jim Swindler.
Present.
Thank you. And Kelly Hopper.
Present.
Perfect. Thank you. That confirms staff on the line.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amoret. I would like to remind everyone at this time to mute their microphones until after the staff's presentation. And remember, of course, to unmute when we open up for the director's discussion. If we have directors joining us by phone, please use your mute button or *6 to unmute yourself. After staff's presentation, I will be asking for any questions or comments on that item. Click on Reactions and Raise Hand on your device if you have a question, or press *9 for the raise hand function if joining by phone. If there are any questions, the secretary or I will call on you accordingly. If we miss your raised hand, please do speak up. After our discussion, we will ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. We will begin with agenda item 3 to authorize execution of a general agreement for the cooperation improvement of visitor experiences, facilities, services, and interpretation at the Golden Gate Bridge and adjacent national park lands with the National Park Service and the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. The staff report begins on page 3, and wonderful Dennis Mulligan will present this item. Dennis, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, staff, and members of the public. The item before you recommends that the Building and Operating Committee recommends to the Board of Directors that they authorize the General Manager to execute a general agreement for the cooperative improvements of visitor experiences, facilities, services, and interpretation at the Golden Gate Bridge in the adjacent national park lands, called the General Agreement. The agreement would be with the National Park Service and the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, and it would be to support and enhance visitor programs at the bridge. This agreement replaces an expired MOU that we entered into before the 75th anniversary of the bridge. As background, we don't own any land here at the Golden Gate Bridge. Those that went before us had to work with the federal government to get the authority to build the bridge. It took an act of Congress, and then it took an agreement, what was then known as the Department of War, to authorize building the bridge here. The Department of War later became the Army, and then when the military installation closed on both sides, the control of those federal lands was transferred to the National Park Service, specifically the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. As the district was approaching the 75th anniversary of the bridge, we recognized that, there's some things that we're quite good at. We excel at transportation by bridge, bus, or ferry, but visitor services is not our forte. We recognize that it's important to understand things that we have expertise at, and then to partner with those who have expertise in those areas where we're wanting. So we entered into an arrangement with the Park Service and the Golden Gate National Recreation Area that resulted in a whole host of improvements at the site and visitor experiences. It led to the construction of the Welcome Center, the construction of the Visitor Plaza adjacent to the Welcome Center. A whole host of trail improvements were constructed, and it's been a very fruitful relationship. That agreement, though, has expired, and so we wish to continue this great relationship we have. And the Park Service now has a standard form they use with park partners, and that's what's before us here today. But if you authorize me to sign this, it would allow us to replicate the broad goals and objectives and responsibilities of that 2011 MOU that we entered into before the 75th anniversary, and it would allow us to continue to enhance the visitor experience here at the bridge. Our ultimate goal is to have some sort of museum or experience for visitors here at the site, but it's incremental steps along the way. A lot of improvements have been done over these last 10 years, and we look forward to more. So with your approval and the approval of the board, it will allow us to proceed forward. The agreement before us is a general agreement. Any specific project would have specific terms, cost sharing, and other financials that would then come back before the district for approval. So this doesn't create any financial impact. It allows us to continue the relationship and work with our partners to do wonderful improvements here at the site while not using toll funds to do that. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dennis. Are there any questions or comments from directors at this time? Jim, I see your hand up.
Yeah. So Dennis, does Alexander Avenue fall under this agreement? And if not, where does it?
So as you exit 101 going northbound, right, as you exit 101 northbound after leaving the bridge, because the bridge is not part of Highway 101, right, you come to the Alexander Avenue exit. When you take the exit, that intersection is actually federal lands that Caltrans controls. And then almost immediately as you start going down the hill, it's within our permitted area, and it extends down to the city limit. So Alexander Avenue is within our permitted area. We are working with the Park Service to get some grants to do some work there, as well as on Vista Point Road, which is a gravel road that goes down the hill from Vista Point at the north end of the bridge to provide an alternate path for bicyclists and pedestrians. But that is our permitted area, and it is an area that we're talking to our partners about improvements.
I guess my question really is, should it be part of our permitted area?
I've tried many times over the years to find a willing entity to assume that property. We have offered it to many such entities, and thus far we have no takers. We offered to repave it and to spruce it up and make it pristine and almost new. In terms of transferring that, the rights we have to it, we've offered it to the Park Service, we've offered it to Caltrans, we've offered it to the city of Sausalito. And arguably, to their credit and wisdom, they've all declined.
Well, in your opinion, if it wasn't ours, who would be the logical overseer of it?
It is federal lands. A portion of it provides key access to the park. Someone has to have it, and right now, to be blunt, we're stuck with it.
Right.
It is not our underlying land. We have an 80-foot wide right to use it, but with that right comes certain obligations. Alexander Avenue was constructed by the Bridge District as one of the access points to the bridge. in the 1930s. And so because of that historic relationship, we were encumbered with it. And so it's ours today. But we have offered it multiple times to various entities. And thus far, we've been unsuccessful.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
All good. And Amarat, I don't see any other directors' hands up. Last chance, anyone? Okay, that concludes our discussion on item number 3. But before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We do have one speaker on this item. Justine, would you like to introduce our speaker?
Certainly, thank you. Our first speaker, only speaker for this item is David Pilpel. David, go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Excellent. So on this item, I hope this will very much include updates to signage at the toll plaza and the Welcome Center and the East parking lot. Some of the signage is now out of date, inconsistent, and weathered, as are some of the other facilities there. I'm happy to point that out to the appropriate staff, do a little walk around the area, show some things that I've noticed. And no, I am not volunteering to create Friends of Alexander Avenue and take that over in terms of maintenance. I apologize for that. But yes, I support the general agreement and the principles that were outlined by staff and in the staff report. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, David. I think you'd have a hard time finding the friends anyway, but thank you. All good. And thank you, colleagues. May I have a motion on agenda item number 3 to authorize execution of a general agreement with the National Park Service and the Golden Gate National Park Conservancy?
This is Barb, so moved.
Thanks, Barb. May I have a
Second.
Lots of seconds. All good. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first and a second voting on item number 3. We're starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy. Director Conroy joined us in the middle of the presentation, so I know she's there. Director Conroy, if you're there. All right, we might be having an issue with the unmuting there. I'll roll back there. So going on to Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosboll is absent. Director Hernandez is also absent. Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you. Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm circling back. Director Conroy.
I was having muting problems. Aye.
I thank you. You have 11 ayes.
Thank you, Amaret. The motion passes. We will move now on to agenda item number 4 to authorize the general manager to execute a 2-year license agreement with the San Francisco Metropolitan Transportation Agency for the Salesforce Transit Center Bus Plaza in San Francisco. The staff report begins on page 5, and Norma Jellison will be presenting this report. Norma, welcome. I hope I pronounced your last name right, and
Yep.
please begin your report.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So as Director pointed out, we're asking for the authorization to enter into a new 2-year license agreement for the bus plaza at the Salesforce Transit Center. This is on street for our buses to continue to use 2 bays there, which we have been since 2018 opening of the facility. And we had a previous series of agreements, the most recent one, a 2-year agreement, which expired and has been continued on a month-to-month basis since September of last year, yes. And we continue to use those bus facilities, that bus plaza, and we want to continue to because it helps us facilitate daily services to and from the North Bay. The actual license agreement has a very modest increase in the fee between the current one and the proposed one, the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority, who owns the Salesforce Tower and then therefore manages a budget for the entire Salesforce Center, just adopted their budget, and we have a portion of the operating costs that we pay into that budget for the use of the plaza. And we have this new license agreement will be $192,360 a year. And it's based on our 4.2% of the exclusive space that we use in this plaza. And it's a function of the agreement between the San Francisco MTA and the TJPA, who has more of the space that they utilize and pay for. We do have a cap if for any reason the cost would go over 750,000, highly unlikely. And we can terminate it at any time if our rent and or as can the Metropolitan MTA, they can also terminate their agreement. But this works for us. It's worked for us for multiple years. We want to continue to use it. And I hope that you will recommend approval of execution of this license agreement to the board. And if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, and Dennis can join in or fill in anything that I didn't say.
Okay. Thank you, Norma, for your presentation. Are there any questions, comments from the directors at this time?
We do have a hand up. I believe Director Parr has her hand up.
Go ahead,
Thank
Barb.
you. Good to see you, Norma. Haven't seen you for quite a while. I know you were behind the scenes making us whole in the real estate, so thank you. I do have a question. Is it realistic to have the upper limit be so much higher than the actual yearly? I mean, I understand the inflationary piece, but if it's approximately $200,000 a year, is it I just like to say putting beans in your ears, like saying to Salesforce Tower, oh, look, this is what we have authorized. Feel free to go ahead and raise our rent. It just seems like a big stretch from the 200,000 to the 750 in 2 years, and then to a possible of 3 million in any fiscal year. I know that our buses need to be there, but talk to me a little bit about that.
I can jump in maybe, Norma.
Yeah.
The Salesforce Transit Center has complicated financing for its construction, and the operating costs are quite complicated also. So we want to have an upper limit in there to protect the district. The rate that we'll be paying is quite modest compared to our use of the site, and it's much less than we anticipated. The cost for security, for restrooms, for maintenance of the site are not insignificant. When they originally were finalizing the construction of it, we're making alternate plans to not go in the site because of how high the cost could have been. So we've been successful at negotiating rates. They have outside funding sources that come to bear. There's multiple transit operators that use it. We're one of the smaller uses of it. And so we've been able to keep the lower rental rates since we went in there. The original rental rate proposed was much higher than that $750,000 cap per year. And so the cap is just kind of a backstop, their costs are significant, but the Metropolitan Transportation Commission has been forthcoming with additional assistance. So we don't think we'll need that, but it's basically something we've had in all of our prior agreements for the use of the site since it originally opened. And we think the deal in front of us is surprisingly good, actually.
And less than we originally thought it was going to be, thanks to RM2 and RM3.
Thank you for that.
Wonderful. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, right, Amaret? I'll now take this to the public. That concludes our part of the discussion of item number 4. Before we vote, anyone in the public?
Yes, we do. We have, I believe, one speaker on this one as well. Justine, go ahead and introduce our speaker.
Certainly, thank you. our only speaker for this item is David Pilpel. David, go ahead.
David Pilpel again. Assume that you can hear me okay. Here is yet another good example of regional transit coordination. I want to publicly thank Norma for her work on this and the prior item and everything else that she does day to day on real estate and property development issues. She's fantastic. I just wanted to review the math for a second on the second page. I get the 192,000. You talked about the 750,000. The last sentence confused me a little bit. The termination of if the annual rent exceeds 3 million. I assume that's MTA's lease, and if MTA's rent should, for whatever reason, exceed 3 million, and it looks like they're now paying 26% of the net operating gap of 4.5 million, which is roughly 1.5 million, so that 3 million protects MTA in the event that their 1.5 million goes up to 3, but in any event, the district's portion is still 4.2% of the 4.5 million, which runs to the 192,000 and would be highly unlikely to exceed the 750 cap over the 2 years. So that was just my understanding of the math and the fiscal impact. Next time, it would be nice to have an additional page with a map showing where it is and some photos of actual Golden Gate Transit buses sitting there picking up passengers. And when I saw the video on YouTube with the background with Amarette on the bus is empty. So hopefully we would have, a more full bus behind Amarette with lots of people on it going places to and from the North Bay. Thanks for listening.
Speaker is correct. The $3 million reference in the staff report refers to SFMTA or Munis out with respect to it. They're a much larger footprint there. And similar to us, they have with their agreement with the TJPA, the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority that operates and owns the Salesforce Transit Center and out. And then we're a subtenant to SFMTA. So the speaker was correct.
Great. Thank you, David, for your insight. Appreciate it very much. And colleagues, may I have a motion on agenda item number 4 to authorize general manager to execute a 2-year license agreement with the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency for the continued usage of 2 bus bays at the Salesforce Transit Center Bus Plaza in San Francisco.
Madam Chair, I'll move the item.
Thank you, Jerry.
Second, Rabbit.
Thank you, David. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We have a first and second on item number 4, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice is absent. Director Grosball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 11 ayes.
Thank you. The motion passes. We will move on to agenda item number 5 to approve actions relative to award of contract number 2022 F083 Larkspur Ferry berths and channel maintenance dredging. The staff report begins on page 7, and Ewa Bauer-Furbish will present this item. Ewa, please begin your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The agenda item number 5 report presents staff recommendation for an award of the Larkspur Ferry Terminal berth and channel dredging construction contract to Manson Construction Inc. of Seattle, Washington. One of the 4 ferry routes operated by the District Ferry Division is the San Francisco Larkspur route to Central Marine. The Larkspur Ferry berth, turning basin, and navigation channel require periodic maintenance dredging to remove sediments that accumulate in the waterway. The 4 berths, turning basin, and 2-mile-long navigation channel were last dredged in 2015. In September 2020, one, the district performed a bathymetric survey of the waterway. Based on the survey results, staff determined that the extent of sediment accumulation necessitated performing maintenance dredging of the foreberth, the turning basin, and the navigation channel during the 2022 dredging season. Contract number 2022 F083, Larkspur Ferry Terminal berth and channel maintenance dredging, will include the maintenance dredging and disposal of the dredged material at in-bay disposal locations and at permitted upland beneficial use locations. The bid solicitation required the prime contractor to list in its bid a California registered third-party hydrographic survey subcontractor whose organization, equipment, and crew are separate from the contractors. The independent surveyor's work under the construction contract involves verifying that the minimum required dredge elevations are met and the maximum elevations allowed by the regulatory agencies are not exceeded. In addition, the work involves calculating dredge material volumes for payment. The reason of having an independent surveyor performing the hydrographic surveys is to ensure the neutrality of the results and to avoid any potential conflict of interest from the district or from the contractor. The construction contract was advertised for bids on April 12, 2022, and on June 1st, 2022, the district received 3 bids. The bidders are Lind Marine, Manson Construction, and the Dutra Group. Engineering staff reviewed the 3 bid proposals for completeness and conformance with the bid solicitation requirements, and determined that the apparent low bidder, Lind Marine's proposal, did not list an independent surveyor. Lind Marine stated in its bid proposal that it intended to perform the surveys with its own personnel. Engineering staff and the attorney have determined that Lind Marine was not responsive to the bid solicitation. Engineering staff has determined that the 2 other bid proposals complied with the bid solicitation requirements. The engineering staff and district attorney have determined that Manson Construction Inc., with a bid price of $13,975,500, is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. An SBE contract specific goal of 2.1% was established for this contract. The DBE program administrator has determined that Manson Construction has complied with the DBE SBE program requirements applicable to this contract. Manson Construction is not a DBE or an SBE, but has committed to subcontract with 3 SBE firms. At this time, SBE participation of approximately 13.8% is anticipated during the performance of this contract. Engineering staff and its design consultant perform a cost analysis of the bid from Manson Construction, comparing the bid pricing to the engineer's estimate. Manson Construction bid is below the engineer's estimate. The engineer's estimate was based on a conservative assumption that the dredged material would be disposed at the most expensive upland sites, and prices of the in-bay disposal would be much higher as well. The bidders have been able to obtain much lower disposal prices. The prices of all 3 bidders were relatively consistent, and staff determined that Manson's Construction pricing for the work is fair and reasonable, and recommends award of contract number 2022 083 to Manson Construction, Inc. It is also recommended that a contingency in the amount of $2,096,325 or 15% of the construction contract's total price be established for this contract to account for uncertainties in the amount of sediment volume present in the channel, which may need to be removed in order to achieve the depths necessary to maintain ferry operations. This project, Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berth and Channel Dredging Construction, is currently included in the proposed fiscal year 22-23 Ferry Transit Division capital budget in the amount of $23,500,000 and is funded with 80% of FTA grant funds and 20% of district funds. Staff recommends reducing the project budget to $17,900,000 to be funded again with 80% of FTA and 20% of district funds. The cost savings from the remaining $5,600,000 may be redirected to other eligible projects. So with this, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Ava, for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues on this item, item number 5? David, go ahead. And then
thank you very much, and thank you, Ava, for the presentation. And in full disclosure, I did talk to one of the bidders, local bidders, contractors, and I also talked to the general manager regarding that. And although my question is not necessarily related to that discussion, in general, have we ever investigated whether it's more economical to spread a job like this out over 2 seasons rather than 1? I know that mobilization costs can be significant depending on where that contractor is coming from or what they're doing. But I also know that the window, in the amount of dredge materials is the window is short, the dredge materials are large, therefore they're working around the clock, apparently. Have we ever really, just for our own edification, done an analysis of, is it better to spread it out over a couple cycles? And can we get it done cheaper? Just curious.
Historically, the most economical way to do it is to do 1 contract if you can get all the work done in the window. If you can't, then you do a second contract. But the mobilization costs, even for a local provider, are significant. So historically, the bid documents have them working 24/7, except near the Green Bay Boardwalk where there's residents. So it has various restrictions. It has restrictions based on the various environmental windows. Dredging is highly regulated. There's lots of permits involved. But the way that the district has done it is how other agencies do it, and it is clearly considered the most economical. And that is, if you can get it done in 1 cycle, you do. If it spills over into the second cycle, you have to contend with that and do it. But if you can get it done once, it's always preferred.
No, I appreciate that. I just thought I would ask, and I know I do appreciate all the everything that goes into it and the tight windows that we're all dealing with. So thank you.
Thank you, David. And in the interest of full disclosure as well, I was also contacted by counsel of one of the bidders and spoke with Dennis about it. I believe Michael is next, and then Holly.
Yeah, counsel left me alone, thank goodness. A couple questions. One is we achieved the savings, or the contractor achieved the savings apparently, because the disposal of spoils was not going to be so highly proportioned to an upland location, but more marine. Where are the spoils going? That's question number 1. And number 2 is, it's been 7 years since the last time we did this. Do we have a fairly consistent rate of siltation there, or has that varied over time? Those 2 questions.
Okay, so maybe I can answer the second question first. The sedimentation varies and very much depends on the runoff from the Corte Madera Creek. So during heavy rain seasons, of course, there will be more sedimentation coming to the channel. And also, it also depends on the wave actions that may basically move the sedimentation from one bottom location to another. So what we're trying to do on regular basis, verify the sedimentation, the depth of the channel, basically to assure that we do not have problems with our ferry operations. And with regard to the first question, on the contract with this particular, with Manson Construction, they plan to send 70% of the dredged material to an upland location on the Cullinan Ranch. This is near San Pablo Bay. And this is by the contract that we requested that this is how the disposal of the dredged material will be accomplished. So Cullinan Ranch is a huge 15,000 acres wildlife and wetland restoration site. The remaining 30% will be disposed in bay near Alcatraz and also near San Pablo Bay, and this will be directed by Army Corps of Engineers.
If I may add something, Mr. President, the original budgeting, it wasn't clear what the disposal options would be that would be permitted because we have to go through a process with the Corps of Engineers, BCDC, Regional Water Quality Control Board, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and EPA with respect to dredging. And the original estimate thought that the upland site might be Montezuma, which is a much further haul or distance to push it. And it also contemplated that some of the material may go deep ocean disposal. But Ava's team and their consultants were very successful in negotiating favorable terms with the Dredge Material Management Office, which is the name of that group that represents all those permitting agencies. So hats off to them.
Yeah, nice work, and thanks for that.
Thank you, Michael. Holly, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chair Garbarino. I just wanted to commend Ava Bauer-Furbish and Kim Manolius and Dennis Mulligan. You know, it's very difficult when a bidder is not responsive. And I just want to talk about the importance of the independent surveyor and the reason for that, as I understand it in the contract. And you know, having an independent surveyor that actually looks and does these hydrographic surveys is absolutely imperative to make sure that there's no conflict of interest in what the contractor states related to measurements of volumes and also, you know, meeting the minimum required dredge elevations for our regulatory agencies. So, you know, not having that in the low bid is not responsive, and I just want to commend staff for making those tough decisions and making sure that the bids are responsive and accurately ensure that the information going back to the district is double checked and that the district is actually paying for what we're actually getting. So I just wanted to commend staff and our director for that.
Thank you, Holly. Chris? I think Chris, I see the sign language on Dennis's part. That's all good. There we are. Go ahead.
No, thank you. You know, I did a little bit of dredging myself back when I was in the field, and I understand fish windows and the importance of trying to get as much done as possible. And you know, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's hard work. It's challenging work. I didn't talk to any of the bidders, but I do know that even though Manson is out of Seattle, they do have a yard here, and they have a lot of resources in the Bay Area, right over in Richmond, as does Dutra. So that I kind of see all these folks as local contractors because they're putting folks to work locally. I'm also excited that we have the opportunity to put some of these folks to work because I've been working with Congressman Garamendi on trying to keep these assets within the Bay, because if we don't because dredging and all this mobilization is so expensive that if we were ever to have a disaster or anything that nature, we need all these companies to be here, but they also need to be able to work and whatnot. So I'm excited that we're having this opportunity this morning, and I know that they're all quality companies, and Manson's going to put a lot of local folks to work too. And again, these resources are important to keep in the Bay Area, and I know we're working with the Army Corps to kind of make sure that these companies stay here too, because it is important long term for this kind of project and any other big dredge projects and disaster relief. If we're ever to have another 1906 type event or 89 event, it's important to have these folks here. So thank you, and appreciate staff, and thank you for your report.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? So that concludes our discussion on item number 5. But before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item? Amarat?
We do have 3 speakers, I believe, on this item. So I'm going to turn it back over to Justine to introduce the first speaker. Justine?
Thank you. Our first speaker this morning is Riley Hurd. Riley, go ahead.
Thank you, and good morning, directors. My name is Riley Hurd, and I'm here on behalf of Lind Marine, the low bidder, who is proposed to be passed by in the staff report. And we would like to admit that a mistake was made. It's an expensive mistake for Lind Marine, but much more importantly and relevant today is it's an expensive mistake for the district. Lind Marine failed to list a hydrographic survey company. I completely agree with Director Thier. The third-party certification of the spoils amounts and depths is critical. It was just a mistake, and they have now located, identified, and submitted a third-party surveyor, very well-respected, E-Track, also a local company just like Lind, who's based out of San Rafael. And what's key is the district can save $3 to $5 million if you count the contingency that's being withheld by taking a very simple action here. As you see from the staff report, Lind Marine came in at approximately $10,900,000 and Manson's at $13,900,000. Lind can do this job with the third-party surveyor for the price that they submitted. The oversight and correcting that doesn't change the price, nor does it change the amount of time it would take for them to do this. Even with only a 12-week dredge window, they could complete this. So the public contract code, specifically 20166, says that your district has the ability to reject all bids without reason. And we would submit that that is the most fiscally prudent course of action for the district today. Why? Because if you rebid this, which can happen very quickly, there's only a 10-day notice period. This one got strung out a little longer. You can save $3 to $5 million. And, the RFP docs have already been prepared. It would be very easy to redo this. And not just as a Lind Marine representative, but as a ratepayer, if that's what we call a user of your district, I would implore you to please save the $3 million, operate under this fiduciary duty and responsibility as a director, and you'll get the exact project with the surveying for $3 to $5 million less. And the contract code is clear that this process can take place. So thank you very much. I would strongly encourage you to consider this. The other speakers that were listed are Lind Marine representatives who are here only if you have questions about the logistics of this. So I'll wrap up and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurd. I'll direct my question to staff if they want to respond.
Staff recommends that you take the action presented before you in the written staff report. We operate a ferry service that requires our vessels to be able to safely navigate the channel. We historically have dredged every 3 to 5 years. We're overdue to generally we did every 3 or 4 years. We have had several drought years, so the accumulation was slower than typical, but we are at risk if we were not to complete this dredging. The dredging window opens in a couple of weeks, and so we think it's in the best interest of the district that we proceed with the action as outlined in the staff report, that we don't reject all bids. Rejecting all bids puts us on a path of delay, a path that eats into the time available to conduct the dredging before our restrictions shut it down again. And so staff feels strongly that the best course of action is to proceed as outlined in the written staff report.
Thank you, Dennis. Hearing no other members of the public that wish to speak, I would like to ask my colleagues if I may have a motion on agenda item number 5 to approve actions relative to award of contract number 2022F083.
Chair Garbarino,
Yes.
excuse me, just before we do, I know the other two, Mr. Hurd may have mentioned it, but I'd like to at least let Mr. Butler and Mr. Coleman have the opportunity to speak in the event they would like to speak on this item. We'd like to just kind of let them acknowledge in the public room that they do not want to speak, if that be okay.
No, that's just fine. I had heard him say if we have questions, so maybe too, what we can do is I'll ask my colleagues if you have any questions of the Lind staff and representatives as well, but certainly let's ask them if they want to speak as well.
Okay.
Colleagues,
Justine?
Great, go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, or good morning. This is Bill Butler with Lind Marine. Thank you, Chair Garbarino, for the opportunity to address the committee this morning. As you know, as Mr. Hurd indicated, we acknowledge the administrative error that was made in our bid, but we just want to make sure that the committee understands that there is an option to save the district $3 million with this, and respectfully ask that you consider that. Secondly, just to clarify regarding the independent hydrographic surveyor, we always utilize an independent hydrographic surveyor for our dredge projects. It was always contemplated in this particular project, and the money to utilize an outside independent hydrographic surveyor was included in our original bid. It was just mistakenly not listed as a subcontractor. So I just wanted to clarify that in case there was any question about that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do my colleagues have any questions of the speaker? Okay. Is there another speaker, Amarad?
Justine, I believe we have one more. Is that correct?
That is correct. Our next speaker is Skylar Coleman. Skylar?
Yeah, this is Skylar Coleman with Lind Marine. Thank you for the time today. I just want to confirm that yes, we can certainly complete this project in a 12-week window. And further to Bill's point prior to this, we are very familiar with utilizing a third-party surveyor and how that plays into a fair and appropriate process. So that's all I have. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else, Amarad? Justine?
We have no other speakers on this item.
Thank you, Justine. So unless there's further discussion on our part, colleagues, may I have a motion on agenda item number 5 to approve actions relative to award of contract number 2022F083, Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berths and Channel Maintenance Dredging to Manson Construction Incorporated.
Madam Chair, I'll move the item.
Great. We have 3. That's all good. One of them could be a second, or would someone like to also second officially? Thank you, Bert. Madam Secretary, please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item number 5 with the first from First Vice President Cochran and the second from Second Vice President Hill, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent, Director Conroy.
Aye.
Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Should I abstain or can I vote on this item?
You did miss the presentation on it, so you're
Correct.
welcome to abstain. Yes.
I will abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Grosboll? Absent. Director Hernandez? Absent. Director Maston?
Aye.
Director Parr?
Aye.
Director Rabbit?
Aye.
Director Rodoni?
Aye.
Director Snyder?
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier?
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill?
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran?
Yes.
And President Tirio?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 11 ayes.
Thank you, Amaret. The motion on item 5 passes. We will now continue to agenda item number 6, to approve actions relative to professional services agreement number 2021F018, Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berth. And sorry, guys, I was asking you to vote twice on the same thing. I apologize. Okay, or am I doing the right thing, Amaret, even with the script? I was
No,
on
you're doing the right thing.
Thank you very much. I need more of this caffeine. To continue, Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berth and Channel Maintenance Dredging Design, Pile Design, and Permit Support Services with Anchor QEA LLC. The staff report begins on page 11, and Ava will be presenting the report. Ava, please begin your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The agenda item number 6 report is related to the Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berth and Channel Maintenance Dredging Project and presents staff recommendation for execution of the first amendment in an amount not to exceed $136,110 to PSA number 2021 F018 with Anchor QEA. Anchor QEA is the design consultant for the project. The district would retain Anchor under the First Amendment to provide engineering support services during the dredging of the Larkspur Ferry Terminal berth, turning basin, and the navigation channel. In August 2021, the Board of Directors authorized the award of PSA 2021 F018 Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berth and Channel Maintenance Dredging Design, Pile Design, and Permit Support Services to Anchor QEA LLC. Consistent with established engineering practices, the administration and management of the dredging project construction will require that Anchor engineering support provide engineering support services during the construction. And as an example, the work Anchor would be performing is reviewing and recommending approval of contractors' technical submittals, coordinating the submission of the district pre-dredge survey and the contractor's dredging operation plan with permitting agencies in order to obtain approval to commence dredging, attending weekly coordination meetings with the district and contractor, providing reviews and recommendation on contractors' progress surveys and payment requests. And the full list is presented in the staff report before you. Anchor, as the consultant responsible for the design, is uniquely qualified and capable to perform the design engineering support services during construction. Engineering staff has negotiated with Anchor a not to exceed price of $136,110 for the services under the First Amendment. Staff has determined that this not to exceed price is reasonable based on the scope of work, consistent with historic costs for engineering support services provided by consultants for other similar projects, and that the costs are consistent with Anchor's cost for its design services. Anchor will be compensated for actual time expended and expenses incurred, plus a fixed fee, up to the authorized not to exceed amount. Staff recommends that a contingency for the First Amendment be established in the amount of $20,420, or 15% of the amendment amount, to provide a budget for any additional or changed work scope that may develop while work progresses. A 15% contingency is recommended because of the uncertainty involved with dredging work and the regulatory agency environmental compliance requirements. At this time, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Administrator has determined that no DBE or small business enterprise subconsultants will perform work associated with this first amendment. Sufficient funds in the Larkspur Ferry Terminal Berth and Channel Maintenance Dredging Project revised budget that was presented under the agenda item number 5 staff report will be available to finance the $136,110 First Amendment amount to PSA number 2021-F018 and the $20,420 amendment contingency amount for the total amount of $156,530. And with this, I'll be happy to answer any question the committee may have for me.
Thank you, Ava, for your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from directors on this item, item number 6 at this time? Seeing none, that concludes all of our discussion on item number 6. But before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, may I have a motion on agenda item number 6 to approve actions relative to Professional Services Agreement 2021-F018 with Anchor QEA LLC?
So moved, Director Thier.
Thank you, Holly. May I have
Second.
Thanks, David. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item number 6, starting with Director Arnold. Absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
Aye.
Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's 11 ayes.
Thank you, and that motion passes. And I will now attempt to successfully move us on to item number 7 on the agenda, an informational monthly report from board appointees on the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit Board, SMART. And I'll start off with the report, and I'm very happy to relinquish any of this or fill in from any of my colleagues. Please feel free to do so. My report, and again, David or Barb, if you'd like to add or actually do the report. Most of it centers around ridership, which, thank you so much, Barb, for this email yesterday. As Eddie reminds us in our meetings, and I do have a report from our board meeting of June 1st, June 15th, and a 5-page synopsis that Eddie kindly supports us and supplies us with after the meetings that I'm happily willing to send to Amaret to send to the board members. So really good ridership week. Wednesday was a new ridership high post-COVID at 1,702. The new high for therefore average weekly ridership is 1,592, up almost 9% from last week. New high for total weekly riders, 9,905. New high for bikes carried, 1,637. It does not appear the bikes are starting to spread out into the new service, however. Some of the tweaks in the service include rides to the Muirwoods shuttle as we move into summer, tips for trips, 10 additional rides as well, 10 that started on June 13th, added to our weekly ridership. There was also a report about the Shellville cleanup, so that's moving forward nicely. And we had on our agenda on June 15th As well, the approval of resolutions adopting the fiscal year budget for 2022-2023. And from the June 1st meeting, we also had as we heard earlier, consent to participate in MTC's Institutional Transit Pass Pilot Program. And finally, approve the additional service on June 12th and 26th to meet with the Golden Gate Ferry service to Oracle Park for obviously Giants games. So my colleagues, David and Barb on Smartboard, do you have anything to add?
Well, this is Barb. I had the pleasure of getting up at 7:15 this morning and sitting in on the Citizens Oversight Committee meeting, which ran right up until 9 o'clock. So I missed the end of it. But the bulk of the meeting was the grand jury report. And I'm not at liberty to talk about it, but I'm sure that it will come up in the paper before the Smart Board takes a look at it. The Citizens Oversight Committee, I was really impressed. I had never attended one of their meetings, although I'd gotten reports from them. They're a thoughtful group. They had some amazing ideas about how the grand jury suggestions could be met. And they've established a small subcommittee to work on those and bring those back to the board. So when you hear that there were 9 or 10 recommendations from the grand jury, my plea is don't panic. It's fairly under control. Eddie is an incredible general manager. And as I said, that team, David is the president, and I'm sure that they'll have something good to report. But it was a great meeting. It was interesting. If any of you ever have an opportunity to tap in on it, it was worth getting up at 7:30 for.
Thank you, Barb. And I'll add that I was also on that.
Oh, were you? They don't let us see each other.
No, they have those funny rules, right? I'm
Right.
sure that's just a technology glitch that will be corrected. I too was impressed by their collaboration and the positive support they had. Their charge when the measure passed to fund SMART was limited in scope, and now the grand jury's report will allow them to consider bringing in some other responsibilities, and they took it all quite well, I thought. Very positive. David, do you have anything to add?
Well, I wish I could say that I also got up at 7:30 to be on that call, but I would get struck by lightning if I said that.
Where were you at 7:30 this morning as the chair? Come on.
Well, yeah, and I did actually miss the last board meeting because we had budget hearings at work at the board. But yeah, I think Eddie's already working on the response on the grand jury, and as you know, grand juries are an important institutional component of our society, and they provide much value. At the same time, they do talk to people that have very pointed points of view and interview other people that have very pointed points of view. And we did have, over the course of time, the way that the measure was put forward, the Citizens Advisory Committee was limited to just approval of the budget and strategic plan, and didn't really want to expand beyond that. And I know that Eddie has plans to have a general managers type advisory committee going forward. And we have gone, I believe, well beyond in terms of the listening sessions that we've done, two separate rounds, first with Farhad post measure, last measure, and then again with Eddie going forward. So, I think we're going to be fine going down that path. To the points on the ridership, really exciting. Those numbers do coincide with the additional frequency increase. So I think it goes to, that's all related, as our transit people know. The more often you can get plan for those trips, and the more convenient it is, more ridership you can attract. And was very excited about the two opportunities on the Giants games combining with the ferry. So thank the district for that, and Dennis and his team for combining, because that's a great way to get to a game, even from Sonoma County, Marin County, to take the train down, to get on the ferry, go to get across. And we're going to work on that for SMART because of the same thing with the district. You never know when those games are going to end, and you have to sit and wait for to make sure you're there to provide that ride back home. So it does involve some additional costs, and we're going to have to figure out a way to hopefully expand that offering in the future, but also covering those costs. But the numbers for the first couple games were great. They were Dodger games, so I think that also helped. And it was the weekend they swept the Dodgers, which was ultimately the best thing ever.
Yeah. Thank you, David, very much. Eddie also gave a ridership report to the COC and mentioned too that there were Giants and Dodgers fans sitting next to each other on a 3-car train, chock-a-block, and they all got along. So that ends that item on a positive note. Are there any of my colleague, fellow board members who have comments or questions regarding the SMART report? Okay. That concludes discussion on item number 7, but before we move on, is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item?
We have no speakers on this item.
Thank you very much, Amaret. No action is required for item number 7, so we will move on to item number 8. The status report on engineering projects begins on page 17, and Ava will present her report. Ava, please proceed with your informational report.
You're on mute.
I'm sorry.
It's all good. We all do it. It's all good. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my written report is before you, and I would like to provide you with a few highlights on the progress of the suicide deterrent construction. The contractor is now concentrating their efforts on installing border cables on the main span of the suspension bridge, and they also working on installation of the arms that will support the net on the south approach viaduct. They also are moving the work access from the west to the east side on the north approach viaduct in preparation for the installation of the supporting arms at that location. So with this, I'll be happy to answer questions from the committee.
Thank you, Ava. Colleagues, are there any questions for Ava on the engineering report? Seeing none, I think
we have one hand up. We have
one
President
hand
Terrio.
up. Sorry, I'm sorry, Mike. You're up here over, rightly so, over
Way out of sight.
on the left.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not a question, just a comment. I did ride across the bridge on Monday and observed on both sides of the bridge cable reels that were mostly empty for the border cables. So definitely in progress. They've gotten a lot of cable in. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anyone else? Seeing no one, there is no action that's required with item number 8. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak on this item or address the committee under item number 9? Sorry.
I'm going to bring back Justine. We do have one comment under item number 9, and then she would like to poll because I believe someone joined the call during the meeting, so she wants to make sure she captures everyone. So I'll turn it over to Justine.
Thank you. Our speaker this morning is David Piltel, and then as Amaret said, yes, I would like to poll. David, go ahead, please.
Great. So this is on item 9, general public comment. Since there's no transportation meeting today, and since there wasn't a good place to put stuff otherwise, I've just got a grab bag of a few public comments. So I am interested in applying to serve on the new Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. I left a message for staff and received an application form in the mail. Last I checked, the application form is only 1 page, but it is not, or it was not posted on the district website. If somebody can just post it on the website as a blank PDF form, that would probably promote people applying to serve on that body. And I don't know if staff wants to update the board or this committee on the status of PBAC and its formation, if people have applied and who's making the appointments and where all of that is. I'm also just wondering if there's an update to share on the San Rafael Transit Center project draft EIR. It's been a number of months since the comment period closed. And I just wondering kind of where that project sits. I'm also wondering if it's a little too early perhaps to assess any bus travel time savings from the Lombard, HOV, and Van Ness BRT lanes in San Francisco, both of which I believe are saving perhaps a couple of minutes each direction on both the commutes and the basic bus services into the city, but I don't know if there's any real report there yet. It's only been 2.5 months on Van Ness and perhaps a little longer on Lombard. I appreciate the weekend bus service restoration on the Route 150 from San Francisco only to San Rafael, no longer to Novato, that started on June 12th. So thanks to the district and the bus division for restoring that weekend service on the 150. And finally, I'm also working on some letters to the district, at least 2 of which I hope to get to you this afternoon, related to the budget, the 2 items that are at rules tomorrow. And I'll give you a hint, it's not the item about the master ordinance, and some other issues that I'm thinking about. And I hope that those will get to you in time to read and consider, particularly related to rules for tomorrow morning. And that's it for my general public comment. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, David, very much for your comments. And thank you all. We have reached the end of the agenda. And before I ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting, I got up at 4:15, which is why I might be a little bit goofy. So thank you for your patience with me. And does anyone else, in looking at Amoret right now, think of the Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves movie Speed? No. Okay, all good. Dennis, thank you for nodding your head. Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Move.
Second. Hearing no objections, but I'm sure there is a second out there to put an end to this meeting. This concludes the meeting of the Building and Operating Committee. Thank you, colleagues. The time is 10:41.
We'll start at 10:45, okay? So just go ahead and mute your phones. The stream will still be live, so mute your cameras and your phone for a second, and then we'll come back at 10:45. All right, we're coming back. Chair Rabbit, just want to check in.
Okie dokie.
All right, we're finishing up our polling on the public line right now. And so in a second, we'll be able to start.
Chris, I'm guessing that you were up before 7:30 as well.
Me?
Yeah, I mean, are you not on building trades time still?
Yeah, I am. I was back east,
Okay.
back in
I was up-
Philly for the national convention, which was crazy.
Ah,
But I
was up
got to meet the Secretary of Labor. I got to hang out with him for a little bit, and I actually invited him to tour the Golden Gate Bridge. So I told Dennis if he doesn't mind, it'd be pretty neat if we got Marty Walsh out here.
All right.
Labor out of Boston.
Yeah.
We are ready to start whenever you are. That we've pulled the public line and our stream is live, so we're ready to go.
Well, great. Thank you very much. And welcome to the Finance Auditing Committee of Thursday, June 23rd, 2022. It is 10:47 a.m. and I want to call to order the meeting. Before we begin, please note this meeting is live streamed on YouTube and recorded. Members of the public are encouraged to watch and listen to the meeting on YouTube or by dialing into 415-569-6446 for the audio of this meeting. If you would like to provide public comment at today's meeting and have not done so already, please call 415-569-6446 and let the facilitator know what items you would like to speak on today. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Thank you. Good morning again, everyone, starting with Director Cochran.
Here.
Director Giudice.
Here.
Director Grossball. It's not here. Director Hernandez. It's not on. Director Meston.
Here.
Vice Chair Parr.
Present.
Chair Rabbit.
Here.
And President Theriault.
Here.
Thank you. Let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We are just a committee of the whole again. So we have 6, and we also have on the line directors Garbarino, Hill, Snyder, and Thayer. So we have exactly 10. So we have a quorum and a committee of the whole. So staff-wise, we have Dennis Mulligan back on the line.
Present.
Acting Auditor Controller Jennifer Minucci.
Present.
Eva Bauer-Furbish.
Present.
Kim Manolius. Thank you. Dave Rivera.
Present. Good morning.
Mona Babauta. Hi, Mona. Jim Swindler.
Present.
And Kelly Hopper.
Present.
All right. Also on the line we see here, Leslie Murphy is on the line. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
All right. That confirms everyone on the line.
Great, thank you very much. I want to remind everyone to mute their microphones until after the staff presentations and remember to unmute when we open it up for directors discussion. If we have any directors joining us by phone, please use your mute button or *6 to unmute yourself. And after staff's presentation, we'll be asking for any questions or comments on the item. Click on reactions and the raise hand feature on the device if you have a question, or press *9 for the raise hand function if joining by phone. If there are any questions, the Secretary and I will call on you accordingly. If we missed your raised hand, please speak up. After our discussion, we'll ask for any public comment before moving on. Please follow along by referring to the page numbers located on the bottom right-hand corner of your meeting packet. And Madam Secretary, can you please introduce the first item?
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. Item number 3 is the ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller, and that packet of commitments, ratification, and investments before you and begins on page 5. Leslie, as I mentioned, is right there before us, and she's going to go over the PFM investment report for May 2022. That begins on page 9 of your packet. Leslie, turning things over to you.
All right. Thank you, Amarette. It is good to see you, and it is good to see all of your smiling faces this morning. I do have some exciting news to share. I have recently accepted a promotion here at PFM. I've been with the firm for 13 years, and I'm excited to bring that experience to a new business development role. But it is a bittersweet transition, as I will be transitioning my clients to other well-qualified relationship managers of PFM. I've certainly enjoyed my time working with you all and getting to know you and Joe and his staff members over the past 5 or so years. I will miss presenting to you all every month, as this will likely be my last time presenting to you, but I am very excited to introduce you to your new relationship manager. Wale Kajopai is a senior managing consultant with PFM, and he will be taking the reins. So you will be hearing from him starting next month. Wale has been helping me out on the account and shadowing me for the past couple of months and has been involved in preparing the reports for you. A little bit more information about his background. Wale has been with PFM since the fall, and prior to that, he came to us with 13 years of industry experience, so we're very happy to have him on board. Since he's been with us, he's taken the lead on a number of high-profile engagements, and you'll find him to be insightful and thoughtful and very responsive. So we're very happy to have him on board. As we do so value our relationship with you, just know that we will always put the best client service team together for you, and Wale will lead the charge. So with that said, Wale, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe share a word or two with the group?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wale Kajopai with PFM. Happy to introduce and meet everyone and look forward to working with everyone moving forward. I've got some big shoes to fill, but I've got a good team around me to help me take the baton and carry this relationship forward. So I'm looking forward to the experience.
Welcome.
Is it back to me?
Not yet. I think Leslie still has a report to make.
You couldn't chase me off the stage without one last report. So that said, Amarat, do you want to go ahead and share the agenda packet? As usual, we'll go over the monthly report, and let's start on page 10. Thank you very much. So as usual, we will start with an update to the U.S. Treasury yields. And as you know, the types of investments that we can buy for you are limited by California government code for these operating and reserve portfolios, and yields available on your permissible investment universe very closely track changes in the U.S. Treasury market, which is why we like to talk about what's happening with Treasury yields every month. So all in all, during the month of May, investors seem to be in a little bit of a wait and hold pattern with regards to future rate increases by the Federal Reserve, with a slight risk-off sentiment. So what that means is that as investors sold out of stocks in a large way during the month of May, they had to put their money somewhere. They started buying up U.S. Treasuries instead. So because we saw that increased demand for U.S. Treasury, we saw prices move up. And because of that inverse relationship between prices and yields, we saw yields move down for U.S. Treasuries with intermediate terms to maturity. We can see that in the fact that the 2-year U.S. Treasury note yields dropped down to about 2.56% to end the month. Moving down to the bottom half of this page, looking at the U.S. Treasury yield across the curve out to 5 years, we can see again yields drop for maturities of a year or more, but actually increase for shorter dated maturities, giving us what we would call a flatter yield curve. However, since this report went to print, the Fed moved in a very big way. At last week's scheduled meeting of the FOMC, which is the rate setting committee of the Federal Reserve, the committee voted to increase the overnight Fed funds target rate by 0.75 percentage point or 75 basis points. Now that was the biggest move that we've seen, the biggest single move by the Federal Reserve since 1994. So it was a big move, but it was really one that the Fed felt was necessary in order to tamp down inflation. Now, not surprisingly, because Treasury yields and other high quality fixed income yields are closely tied to changes in that Fed funds target rate, we saw yields shoot up dramatically over the past couple of weeks. So as of today, for example, the 2-year US Treasury is yielding right around 3%. Now, for the district and for all other fixed income investors, the impact of that increase in yields is really twofold. On one hand, you'll see an immediate decrease in the market valuations of your existing holdings, which results in unrealized market value losses that wouldn't be realized until or unless we sold a security prior to maturity. But this is something that you'll likely see when you mark your securities to market at June 30. But on the flip side, the positive news is that as rates move up, we will be able to purchase newer, higher yielding securities for you in your portfolio, which will result in higher interest earnings over time. So some good news for you this morning. Moving on to page 11. Since it is my last time presenting to you all, I thought it might be interesting to just kind of take a step back and do an overall temperature check of the US economy. So the real elephant in the room is the question of, are we headed towards a recession? So to help kind of think about that question and maybe answer it for us this morning, or at least provide some guidance, we're looking at some headwinds and tailwinds facing the US economy. So to start with the headwinds, some of the challenges facing the economy, many market participants worried that the Fed's monetary policy tightening is a little too late, and that the Fed has been too slow to tamp down rampant inflation, which has been surging for the past year and has recently hit a fresh all-time high. And it's really those inflationary concerns that are causing some worry and consternation for individual consumers, businesses, and investors alike. Stocks were really hammered during the month of May, with the S&P 500 sinking into bear territory and turning in its worst month of performance since March of 2020. Causing some further concern is the run-up in mortgage rates and potentially its impact on the housing market in general. Recently, the 30-year has increased at its fastest pace to just about under 6% for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. High mortgage rates combined with existing high home prices are really squeezing a lot of activity in the home housing market, as a lot of potential home buyers are finding they just can't afford to buy the homes that they would like. On the flip side, though, some of the positive aspects of the US economy include the labor market, which is certainly still a job seekers market, with unemployment at just 3.6%. Additionally, corporations are sitting in very healthy financial positions. We're looking at very healthy balance sheets. Recall that back in 2020, when the Fed cut rates down to essentially zero, a lot of corporations issued a lot of debt at that time. So now they're still sitting in a very healthy balance sheet position. And in general, most corporations are reporting earnings in excess of estimates, so that's a good thing. And finally, GDP in general, despite that pullback that we saw in the first quarter's number, most economist forecasts are still positive for the balance of 2022. So we're kind of seeing the winds of change in both the economy and in the financial markets. And certainly this is something that we're going to keep a close eye on as we continue to manage your investment portfolio. Speaking of your portfolio, Amaret, let's go ahead and jump to page 16 of the agenda packet. And we can take a look at some of the activity in your portfolio. Perfect. So we mentioned the fact that rates have been increasing over the past couple of months. Well, that presented some attractive opportunities for your portfolio manager to move funds from some of your lower yielding overnight liquidity options into the managed portfolio. So what we're showing here are those purchases to the tune of about $11 million worth of high quality corporate notes and asset-backed securities. And you can see those yields in excess of 3%. So certainly we're pleased to be able to buy some securities for you around 3% or more, which will increase the earnings in your portfolio. Those of you might remember the dark days of just a couple of years ago in 2020 when we'd be lucky to make purchases at 0.5%. So we're happy to see some of those yields coming up and presenting some attractive buying opportunities. flipping back now to page 18 of the agenda packet, taking a look at your overall investment portfolio, your portfolio does remain in compliance with both California government code and your investment policy, and it's very well diversified by both sector and issuer. And as I always say, while we do look for opportunities to identify those areas of value and to boost the earnings and the yield on your overall portfolio, we never lose sight of the fact that our number one and number two priorities are to maintain the safety and the liquidity of your holdings with us. Given today's somewhat uncertain environment, your team is taking a very close look at the creditworthiness of all the issuers in your portfolio and on our approved list to ensure the utmost safety of your investments with us. And with that, I am happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you so much, Leslie, for your presentations. And again, congratulations on that new assignment. And I'm sure that you're going to be as phenomenal there as you have been for us. And we will miss you here at the district. Your reports are always well received by the committee, and your cheerful delivery is noted, especially with both the good and bad market news that we get, and the mixed news that we seemingly are in these days. And we do look forward to working with and hearing from Wale and on PFM's monthly reports, and hope that the months ahead will hold more positive news for the market. So one last time, are there any questions, comments, or concerns on item 3 from the directors for Leslie? I'm not seeing any hands raised. I'll just confirm that with Amaret.
That's correct. I don't see any hands raised myself either.
Well, again, Leslie, thank you so much. Best to you and family. And while I will really look forward to continuing our relationship and working together. So thank you for being with us as well. So that concludes discussion on this item. And before we take our vote, Madam Secretary, is anyone from the public wishing to speak on item number 3?
We have no speakers on this item.
Okay, I'll ask my colleagues for a motion on item 3 to ratify the previous investments, authorize investments, and accept the investment report.
Also move.
Second.
So we do have a motion and a second, and I'll ask the secretary to please do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We have first and second voting on item number 3. We'll start with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is also absent. Director Garbarino. I think we lost Director Garbarino. We may have left Director. Oh, there she is. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Giudice.
Yes.
Thank you. Director Grosball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni. Director Rodoni is also absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Thank you. Second Vice President Hill. I think we just lost Director Hill. Director Hill is no longer there. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
All right. First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
All right. And President Thierio.
Yes.
Thank you for rounding out our 10. You have 10.
Great, thank you very much. And again, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Wale. We'll move on then to item 4A, to authorize budget transfers and adjustments to the fiscal year 21-22 operating budget. The staff report begins on page 25, and Acting Auditor Controller Jennifer Minucci will be presenting this report. Jennifer, please begin.
Good morning, Chair Rabbit and members of the Finance Committee. This is the first item I have before you is requesting authorization for budget transfers in the amount of $6 million for the fiscal year 21-22 budget. This is an annual item that ensures the district complies with the board policies that any budget transfers that are greater than $50,000 are subject to the board approval. This year, there are no transfers between different divisions. All the transfers we're doing are just cleanups between their respective division and shifting across categories. The details of each transfer are in attachment A, and that starts on page 29 of your packet if you want to look at the details. But overall, the main transfers are as follows. So for the bridge division, the transfer that was mainly needed was to accommodate expenses in the toll program, which included an increase in professional services, banking, and regulatory fees. That was primarily due to an increase in toll traffic, resulting in an increase of toll expenses, as well as we had some rollover late billings from the last fiscal year that rolled into this year. So that's just a transfer in those areas, as well as there's an increase in the facility maintenance line item, and that was also due to support the toll system on the maintenance side. And due to, we all know, rising fuel costs, the expenses were higher than anticipated in the bridge division vehicle area. In the bus division transfers were primarily due to accommodate increases in a one-time settlement in the insurance line item. There were increase in security costs at the bus facilities that weren't originally anticipated during the budgeting process last year. And we also had some increases in Clipper due to usage and increase in the paratransit contract expenses. Lastly, the depreciation was increased due to an implementation to install the wireless routers. So we have shifted funds to accommodate that as well. In the ferry division, we have some unanticipated expenses to provide the AADA shuttle services while we wait for the San Francisco ferry terminal to be repaired. And the depreciation costs also increased due to the completed work on the engine rehauls in 3 vessels. Lastly, in the district division just had to transfer some funds in the depreciation area due to its implementation of the Gero Hasta software, a cybersecurity project, and disaster recovery project. All of these transfers, we, there are many different categories when we have savings, but this year we made it kind of easy for the budget office, and we're taking them from the benefits category due to the less than significant expenses, one from the change in the medical plans when we did the original budget, as well as we have some vacancies in the area. So that concludes my report on budget transfers. Happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Jennifer, thank you for that. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns on item 4A, the budget transfers? I am not seeing any hands raised, and I'll ask, confirm that with our Madam Secretary.
That's correct. I see no hands raised.
How about from the public?
We have no speakers on this item.
Great, then I'll thank you. I'll look for a motion to approve item.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the item.
Great, thank you. And a second by?
Second, Chair.
Perfect. And I'll ask Madam Secretary to please do a roll call vote on item 4A.
Thank you. As we mentioned, voting on item 4A with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosboll is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes.
Great, thank you very much. That motion passes. We'll move on then to item 4B to authorize a budget increase in the fiscal year 22-23 ferry division capital budget for project 2241, the ferry vessel rehab. The staff report begins on page 31, and Jim Swindler will present this report. Jim, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and fellow committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to present this report. As you mentioned, the item before you requests approval of a budget adjustment necessary to fully fund project number 2241, which is the MS Sonoma and San Francisco vessel dry docking and rehab. By way of background, each of the district's ferry vessels are required to undergo a routine out-of-the-water hull exam every 2 years. This is necessary to maintain regulatory compliance with the United States Coast Guard regulations for operating passenger vessels and to maintain the fleet in a state of good repair. Some examples of the significant repairs and renewals that will happen in the shipyard during the dry docking are renewal of passenger doors and hardware, along with replacement of one entire damaged door, hull plating renewal as necessary, and underwater coating.
Jim, can I interrupt you for just a second? You've come in a little muffled. I think it's getting a little harder to hear you as you go on. So if you could just readjust yourself, maybe that'll help the microphone.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
Not really.
Really?
Maybe get closer.
Do here. Afraid this can happen. Not any better.
That's a little better. Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can speak a little bit louder.
Yeah, that'll probably help too. Thank you.
Let's see where it is off here. Oh, and the other, one of the other items that we're gonna add to the vessels are additional cleats and bits to better serve, our new route, Angel Island. Because the dry dockings are considered routine, the general manager normally awards contracts of this nature within his board delegated authority as set forth in the district's procurement policy. However, because there is insufficient funding provided for in the Third Division's FY 22-23 capital budget, a budget adjustment in the amount of $1,100,000 is necessary to fully fund the project. Project 2241 was initially developed anticipating one vessel. However, after several preceding vessel shipyard projects were delayed, it was determined to be more efficient and cost-effective to package both the Sonoma and the San Francisco into one contract. This is also beneficial to the shipyards in production planning. The budget increase is necessary due primarily to adding the second vessel along with an increased contingency. The revised total project budget of $2,530,000 will be 80% funded by FTA and 20% district funded. If approved by the Finance and Auditing Committee, this matter will be presented to the Board of Directors tomorrow for appropriate action. And with that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Jim, thank you very much for that presentation. Any questions, comments, concerns for Jim on this item? I am not seeing any hands raised. I'll confirm that with Madam Secretary and to see if anyone from the public is also wanting to speak on this item.
I also don't see hands raised and I have speakers somehow. There we go. We have no speakers on this item.
Great, thank you very much. With that, can I get a motion on item 4B? I see a hand raised by Barbara Parr and a second by.
I'll second the motion.
There we go, and appreciate that. And Madam Secretary, with that, can we have a roll call vote on item 4B?
Thank you. We're voting on item 4B with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Yes, stand by.
Director Grossball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
This is just
Aye.
the woman.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes.
Great, thank you very much. That motion passes. With that, we'll move on to item 4C to authorize a budget decrease in the fiscal year 22-23 Ferry Division capital budget for project 2340, the Larkspur Ferry Terminal berth and channel dredging construction. That staff report begins on page 33. We just heard the presentation from Eva earlier this morning at the Building and Operating Committee. If there are no further questions for staff, I'd like to continue. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns from directors on item 4C? I am not hearing any, and I'll look to Madam Secretary to confirm and then to see if anyone from the public would like to speak on this item.
I see no hands up and we have no speakers on this item.
So with that, can I get a motion on item 4C for our decrease in our capital budget for this project?
Also moved.
Madam Secretary, did you get a second out of that?
I got third, fourth, fifth. I got all kinds of stuff on that one. Okay, I'll grab that. And we are voting on item number 4C with the first and second. We'll start with Director Arnold, who's missing. Director Conroy is also not on. Director Garbarino. Director Garbarino, there we go.
Aye, sorry.
Thank you. Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grossball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Thank you. Second Vice President Hill.
Yes, you always get that with a budget decrease.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Therio.
Yes.
And that is an enthusiastic 10 ayes.
Yeah, I was waiting for everyone to make that motion on a decrease item. So thank you. That we'll move on then to item 5A, to approve actions relative to the State of Good Repair Program. The staff report begins on page 35, and Jennifer will present this report. Jennifer, go ahead.
All right, this item is another annual item that requests the Finance Committee authorize actions related to grant programs by specifically approving actions relative to the State of the Good Repair Program. In order to comply, the district must submit a board-approved resolution which authorizes submission of its project list to MTC, confirms the estimated funding amount of $1,474,600 to Project 1940, and appoints the GM or designee to submit the allocation request and execute all the State of Good Repair documents required by the Caltrans and MTC. As a reminder, the SB1 State of Good Repair Program takes a portion of the transportation improvement fees on vehicle registrations and distributes about $105 million each year to California transit operators for eligible transit maintenance, rehabilitation, and capital projects. Caltrans, in collaboration with the State Controller's Office, administers the State of Good Repair Program, and funds are distributed through the STA program formula to eligible agencies. As part of the program guidelines, it requires MTC to approve the State of Good Repair Program revenue-based projects from transit operators and submit a single regional list of projects to Caltrans by September 1st of each year. The district's fiscal year 22-23 is requesting one capital project, Project 1940, the purchase of a new ferry vessel, which was added to the district's capital budget on June 22nd, 2018. This concludes my report on this item, and happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Great. Thank you again, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments, or concerns on the State of Good Repair? I am not seeing any. And Madam Secretary, I'll again ask if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this.
We have no speakers on this item as well.
And then I'll bring it back to my colleagues and ask for a motion on item 5A.
So moved, Chair.
We have a motion and a
Second.
second. Perfect. And Madam Secretary, can you please do a roll call vote?
Thank you. Voting on item 5A, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent, Director Conroy is absent, Director Garbarino,
Aye.
Director Giudice,
Yes.
Director Grothbull is absent, Director Hernandez is absent, Director Maston,
Aye.
Director Parr,
Aye.
Director Rabbit,
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent, Director Snyder,
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent, Director Thier.
Aye.
Thank you. Second Vice President Hill,
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran,
Yes.
and President Theriault.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes, and it appears that while we're doing that, Director Maston raised his hand.
We did not ask for public comment on that, I don't believe, did we?
Yes, I did make a comment that there was no speakers on this
Oh,
item.
okay. Sorry. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for keeping me honest, though.
Thank you for that. That motion does pass. And we'll move on then to item number 6 to approve renewal of the liability and property insurance programs. The staff report begins on page 39. Kelly Hopper's here to present the report. Kelly, how much more are we paying for insurance this year?
We are going to pay more, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So the decrease you just approved, we're probably going to ask for it right now. My presentation starts on page 39 of your packet if you're following along in that area. We're actually asking for a series of approvals today in both our liability programs and our property programs. Two things. We're asking for approval of some of the programs, and we're asking for the committee and board to delegate approval of some of the programs to the general manager, and I'll explain why moving forward. So on the liability side, we're asking that you delegate to the general manager the authority to purchase our excess general and automotive liability insurance, which is also going to include our public officials and employment practices liability, which I'm sure all of you are glad to hear, as well as our terrorism risk coverage. And we're hoping that that would have a not to exceed amount of the amount here, which is approximately $4.53 million. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment. Also in the liability side, to renew our workers' comp, our excess workers' comp and employee liability insurance. to renew our public officials employment practices insurance for a 1-year term, to renew our fiduciary liability for our OPEB trust board, to renew our crime insurance program for a 3-year term. That's our only 3-year term that we're asking for on the liability side. And then to renew the cyber liability program as outlined. On the property program side is we have several items here, as well as to renew our property insurance with AIG. And this covers all of our buildings and facilities, with the exception of the bridge. To renew the Marin Transit bus property damage program. As you know, we have many of Marin Transit's buses on our facility, so we have an individual program for that. And then to allocate money into the contingency reserve of $1.3 million as self-insurance for any bridge physical damage, as you have done now for several years. As with many things, just a few things I'll highlight. As with many things over the last few years, it has become extremely difficult to secure insurance programs. There's a lot of reasons for that. This renewal cycle has been particularly challenging. There are a lot of things with difficulties in negotiating renewals, and in many cases, our broker and Kelly Vitale have had difficulty because some insurance coverages, they've completely just said they're not available or they're not going to offer any quotes in the market. So that has been a little bit challenging for us. That is why we're asking in these cases of the delegation of authority to the general manager, is that's going to give us another week for our broker to try to negotiate some of these and get a little bit more flexibility and leverage for us to be able to maybe get a little better rate over the coming week. Last year's premiums, as you know, on our excess liability, they went up. It's challenging in California. We're hearing a lot of providers are just, they don't want to be in the California space. Some of them don't want to be in the transit space anymore. Some of them don't want to be in the law enforcement space. And we know why these are. You see a lot of things in the news. This year, we are actually trying to reduce our covering limit from 85 million to 75 million to hopefully get a few more competitive quotes in for us. And then, as you all know, we've had a couple large claims that have made it challenging for us. So we're trying to work. Most of the others are pretty self-explanatory. I do want to talk a little bit about cybersecurity for a second. As we continue to have ransomware attacks around the world, it's important that the district provide coverage for our systems and our data. That, again, is becoming increasingly challenging. We do have a vendor, though, that our broker believes that we can find a carrier for that. So we have that. But we recognize that cyber liability is an increasingly important coverage layer for us at the district. And then finally, on the property side, those rates are nominally increased, but again, given some of the events that have happened here in California over the last few years with wildfires and riots and floods and things, that is just some residual effects of that. And that concludes my report. If you have any questions, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments, concerns for Kelly on this particular item? Director Hill, go ahead, please.
Yeah, any anticipated problems from Russians?
On the cyber side?
Yeah.
No, not. I kind of want to knock on wood, but we continue to have a quite aggressive cyber protection program here at the district.
Okay.
Any other questions? Kelly, I thought I heard you say tourism risk coverage, which I think our county, I think there are some people who think that we should get that for our county going forward, but do appreciate the work. Thank you so much. And with that, I'll ask Madam Secretary to see if there is anyone from the public who has any comment on this particular item.
We have no tourists that would like to speak on this item.
That concludes the discussion on this item. And with that, can I get a motion to approve renewal of the liability and property insurance programs? Item 6.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And a second by?
Yes, sir.
There we go. And with that, can we do a roll call vote, please, Madam Secretary?
Thank you. We are voting on item number 6 with the first and second, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Crowsball is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Matson.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
There we go. Sorry, I think it
Sorry.
glitched for a second. I'm like, did we lose him? Director Verdoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes.
Great. Thank you all very much. That motion does pass. Next on the agenda is item number 7 to authorize execution of a 7th amendment to contract number 2019-D-067 with Techie Brains, Inc. The staff report begins on page 47, and Jennifer will be presenting this report. So Jennifer, please go ahead.
I do like that name, Techie Brains, just saying it. The item before you is an amendment of, yes, a 7th amendment with Techie Brains in a not to exceed additional amount of $130,000 for a total contract amount of $480,000. This particular item has funding available in both the existing capital and operating budget, and it's also requested that the general manager approve any future contract amendments if needed, and if funds are available. As you can see, this contract's had a number of extensions, mainly due to a slow transfer of a vital staff person from payroll to the IS department. And due to the lack of resources and staffing, mainly due to the inability to staff up in COVID, it's just taking us a while. This contract really has been vital to enable payroll to streamline the payroll processes, as well as troubleshoot and ensure that the payroll module Kronos continues to operate effectively. In addition, this contract resource continues to be helpful as the district moves forward to implement its new enterprise resource system, the ERP system. This resource will assist in helping with interfaces between Kronos and the new ERP system. And that will account for approximately 40,000 of the 130,000 that is being requested today. This particular contract is time and material, and the hourly rates will remain the same. There are no increases. And that concludes my report on this item. Happy to take any questions.
Great, Jennifer. Thank you again. Any questions on this particular item for Jennifer? I am not seeing any. Confirm that with Madam Secretary and see if there's anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item.
Hands up, but we do have a speaker on this item. Mr. Pilpel would like to comment on this one. Mr. Pilpel, you with us?
I am.
There you go. Go ahead.
So on this item 7, although it was related that the hourly rate will not change, I didn't see anywhere in the staff report what the hourly rate is and if it varies by level of person. I'm not sure I need to know right this second, but I'm just saying that the hourly rate wasn't disclosed. Although the current cap says that the district is close to the current cap of 350,000, and this would increase it to 480. I'm not sure how close the district is to the $350,000 cap. Let's see. Although the item as described would delegate authority to the general manager to approve future amendments to the agreement, that seems unusual to me in the abstract. It seems to me like future amendments should either be brought to the board or there should be a specific delegation of authority not to exceed a certain amount, that if it's only amending the agreement, by another 50,000 or something, that that could be delegated authority. I mean, at some point, I think fundamentally these kinds of agreements should be subject to an open bid process. And given the amount of, it hasn't been that long, it's only been a few years, but it's been several amendments. So it sort of suggests an increase in scope. And at some point, I think the public is better served by having another bid process. And fundamentally, it seems like this work should be transitioned from consultants and contractors to district staff. And I understand the challenges of hiring and retention and training and transition and the ERP yada, yada, but there should be a pretty specific plan for getting this work back to district staff for day-to-day troubleshooting and maintenance, and only having specialized services provided by a contractor to maintain a system like the ERP and whatever else Techie Brains is helping with. Anyway, those are my thoughts on item 7. Thanks for listening.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, it is our intention to transition the work. And if the committee and the board choose to delegate the authority to me, I prepare quarterly reports to this committee of all the amendments that we do for all the contracts where authority is delegated. And so it would be disclosed publicly, any and all additional amendments that we may do until such time as this work is taken in-house or we do another procurement.
Thank you for that, Dennis. Appreciate it. Jennifer, go ahead.
I'm also happy to chime in as well that, the last 2 amendments were really just for time on the contract. So it wasn't to increase the dollar amount. It just, we needed more time. And yes, we would love to transition this work over to permanent staff. It just hasn't worked out that way in COVID with some of our recruitments and retirements that have happened.
Great. And I'll just say on my own accord in other jurisdictions, and including the county, that similar circumstances are there as well in terms of this difficult time in finding and filling vacancies for different positions. So everyone is having that challenge. And the contract and previous amendments are referenced in the document. So the prices are, the hourly rates are there by inference. So with that, if there's no more public comment, I will look for a motion to authorize execution of a 7th amendment with Techie Brains, Inc. for this item number 7.
So moved.
Great. And a second by?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we have a motion and a second. And Madam Secretary, can you call vote on item number 7?
Thank you. Voting on item number 7, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent, Director Conroy is absent, Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosboll is absent, Director Hernandez is absent, Director Meston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Thank you. Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Tirio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes.
Great, thank you. That motion passes. We'll move on then to agenda item number 8, the status report on the fiscal year 21-22 budget. Staff report again starts on page 51 of your packet, and Jennifer will be presenting on this item. Jennifer, go ahead.
All right, item number 8, your status report on the FY 21-22 budget is your monthly snapshot tracking overall, including the usage of the one-time federal COVID funds. You can refer to page 53 of your packet if you want to see the detailed chart that we include every month. But now that we're ending toward the end of the fiscal year, this reports out actuals through May 31st, 2022, and also projects out for the month of June. As we've been tracking, the first tranche of ARP of 57.7 million is due to be spent through fiscal year 21-22, and any remaining need will be funded through the second tranche of the ARP, which right now is estimated a little over $6 million using a raw estimate for June expenses. And assumptions on current traffic and ridership trends. As you know, any remaining balance of the ARP will be rolled over to fiscal year 22-23 and any future fiscal years. As we wind down the fiscal year, the trends as compared to budget show favorable for traffic picking up significantly higher than we anticipated when we budgeted for this fiscal year, and bus and ferry lower than we anticipated. This, I'm happy to expand, but this concludes my report. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Any questions, comments, concerns for Jennifer? Not seeing any, and I'll look to Madam Secretary to see if there's anyone from the public on this particular item.
We do have one speaker on this item, and we have David Pilpel also again speaking on this item. David, are you still with us?
Yes. So on the budget status, very briefly, as always, great work keeping the district in business. Traffic continues to be up while transit is catching up, both on the bus side and the ferry side. Although the fiscal cliff date keeps getting pushed out, it's still there somewhere. And I will repeat this in the next item, but I still think the district very much needs a new strategic financial plan. So I really don't want to squander the federal resources and the time that allows for prudent fiscal planning. So there's that. That's all on this item. Thanks for listening.
We have no other speakers.
Great, thank you very much. So that concludes discussion on this item, and there's no action for this item. So now we'll move on to item number 9, to approve the proposed fiscal year 22-23 operating and capital budget. The staff report for that one begins on page 61. I hope everyone had opportunity to go through the proposed budget book. Appreciate getting that earlier, which was initially presented at last month's meeting, and contact staff with any questions. So Jennifer, once again, go ahead.
All right. Last month, as you've said, the Finance Committee had a lengthy presentation from Joe on this item. This month is traditionally the second chance for the Finance Committee to review the budget and answer any unanswered questions. The staff recommends that the Finance Committee approve the fiscal year 22-23 budget and its resolutions. The actual for approval are as follows. I know you all can read, but Joe said the one thing when he went on vacation is I need to make sure I read them all because we only do this once a year. So please bear with me. This starts on page 61, and I will read the recommendation in its entirety if you will bear with me. So the Finance Auditing Committee recommends that the Board of Directors approve fiscal year 2022-2023 proposed operating and capital budget. That 1, authorizes the following items as contained in the budget: district goals, projects, and accomplishments, changes to the reserve structure, and changes to the table of organization. Number 2, includes salary increases for the coalition and non-represented employees. Salary increases for the ATU represented employees are to be negotiated. 3, includes a capital contribution of $21 million. 4, authorizes budget increases for 4 capital projects by a total of $8,477,000 to be funded with 100% of district reserves. 5, authorizes the following items not currently included in the proposed budget, but will be included in the adopted budget. A, any board approved actions through June 30th, 2022 that have a fiscal impact to the fiscal year 2022-23 capital and or operating budget. B, carry over any incomplete projects in the fiscal year 21-22 capital budget to fiscal year 22-23 as authorized by the general manager. C, move any capital projects from the fiscal year 23-24 list to the fiscal year 22-23 budget authorized by the general manager as staff resources become available in fiscal year 22-23. And D, any final 21-22 budget transfers needed to comply with the board's budget policy will be implemented in the fiscal year 22-23 adopted budget. And this matter will be presented to the Board of Directors at its June 24th, 2022 meeting for appropriate action. In this item, I've also included an attachment A that summarizes the questions and answers we've received on the budget thus far. That starts on page 67 of your packet. I'm obviously happy to review anything further in the proposed budget if the committee would like and answer any further questions on this item if there are any.
Great, thank you so much, Jennifer. Very much appreciate the presentation. Again, thanks to you and everyone, Joe and everyone involved in the process. It's not been easy, as we all know, the past several years, putting together the document and the numbers. But thank you for all of your great work. And I do want to open it up, and I do see President Theriault with his hand up. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Chair Rabbit. I do want to thank staff for the commitment to the language I asked for at the last meeting of this committee. So again, thanks.
Great, thank you. Director Maston.
Yeah, on page 63, let me get there. It looks as though Bridge Division and Bus Division, we're only looking at a 1% growth in ridership over the next year. Is that correct?
Percentage wise, yes. I mean, Joe and I have these lengthy discussions on percentages. The percentages that you're seeing refer to 2019.
Right.
So as the years kind of go on, the percentage to pre-COVID numbers, quite honestly, the trends have changed. You know, we were very seasonal. So overall, what we did is we kind of looked at our new trends on what kind of seasonality we're getting. Quite honestly, you know, our weekday weekends have shifted. And then we run the model and it just flattens out to a 1% increase conservatively. I also think that when we put this together, we put this in February, March. Every month that goes by, it changes. So we were relatively conservative because we were seeing things pretty much flatten out.
If I may add, so we're conservative on the revenue side. So we assume that the ridership as it affects fares will go up very modestly, but we assume on the expense side that we'll be adding back service much more quickly. And so we have the latitude to add back service as customers return. And if we're fortunate enough that they do and that we have a commensurate fare revenue, then that would be good news and it would slow down our rate of expenditure of one-time federal COVID relief money.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for staff? Not seeing any. I do think that we have someone on the line, Madam Secretary.
We do. We have Mr. Pilpel also wanting to speak on this item. David, are you still with us?
Yes, and this is it for me for today, I promise. So one of the letters I'm working on summarizes my budget comments from last month's finance meeting. I won't repeat all of those, just one. On page 73, I would summarize the approved changes to the table of organization with the bus reorg from December. I think there was a paint reorg sometime in the last 12 months. And somewhere, whether it's page 73 or otherwise in the budget book, I would include some reference to the labor agreements, both the one-time changes and whatever, all the various labor agreements that were approved by the board in the last year. I think it's worth capturing that in the budget book. The budget does assume a small bridge toll increase in effect next week, no transit fare increase, and continued use of federal funds. As you just discussed, there are conservative traffic and ridership projections, which hopefully will be exceeded on a month-to-month basis, or certainly over the fullness of the year. It does assume full funding of the vacant positions in the district, which I think is somewhat unrealistic, both in the labor market and to the needs of the district, but that gives the management flexibility to hire and the possibility of salary savings that can be reprogrammed. Fuel costs cut both ways, both increased costs to the district and potentially increased transit ridership if gasoline goes up to $8 a gallon. As I've said many times, I think it's critical to develop and implement a new strategic financial plan. It's not clear to me what a possible recession would mean as to costs, including labor costs and ridership. I still have some concerns about the organizational structure, some organizational culture issues and how work gets done, and a few specific positions. I will follow up on those by letter, but they're not significant enough in the main. So all the way around, I support the proposed operating capital budgets as presented by staff at this time. Thank you to Jennifer, Joe, and everybody else who worked on this. And that's it for me for today. I've got letters to work on. Thanks for listening.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Anyone else, Madam Secretary? No?
No, we have no further speakers.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, as was said at our own budget hearing at the county, you know, if we had a crystal ball as to what the future holds, I think the only thing we've seen in it right now is the reflection of, in my case, my big head, and not much insight. And while I think we'd all like to know what's around the bend, we're still very much in this iterative process. I do have a question regarding Mr. Pilpel talking about when we approve the FTE allocation, and if you do that without commiserate funding allocation, do those positions exist? I know that at the county, we generally use fund balance, knowing that there's always going to be a certain vacancy rate. We sweep unfunded or unfilled vacancies after a certain number of years. That's our policy. Can you just speak to that as to what the Bridge's approach is on that particular issue?
So the board at the district approves the table of organization. So you approve the specific and precise number of positions in each job classification. You do not delegate that to staff. As part of the budget process, we fully fund all positions at the top step every year, just so we have the latitude to hire. With the pandemic, we're not sweeping empty positions. Currently about 20% of all district positions are vacant. We had a hard hiring freeze during the pandemic, but as our customers return, we know we need to hire people, bus operators, ferry staff, to meet the service demands that are out there, as well as in our professional classifications. When times are tough, when we were looking at our finances being upside down and spending all of our reserves quickly and arguably going into a financial death spiral, we had a hard freeze in place on hiring because cash is king when times are tough. Now that we're coming out of that, it is a tight job market, but we are in the process of hiring. We're filling a lot of positions. For any members of the public that are out there, we're hiring in a whole variety of classifications. We encourage you to apply. We're a wonderful place to work. But as a matter of policy, the board controls the number of positions, the classifications. We budget the funding for those at the end of the year. That unspent money then rolls over. In this case, it's really not real money. It's unspent federal one-time COVID relief money that will allow us to avoid the fiscal cliff, a few months longer. And so it is prudent that we recognize that each week we take in about $1 million less than we did the same week pre-pandemic. And so our revenues are way down. We're fortunate that Congress, the Federal Transit Administration, have been very generous to us. And so we want to spend that money wisely. And so it's good that we have a lot of vacant positions. We do need to hire. We are hiring, but we don't want to fill them all today. We want to fill them as our customers return.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that explanation. I do. Anyone else have any last questions before we look for a motion to approve? Not seeing any hands raised. So can I get a motion to approve the proposed fiscal year 22-23 operating and capital budget?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and I'll look to Madam Secretary to do a roll call vote.
Thank you. We're voting on item number 9 to approve this fiscal year 2022-2023 operating and capital budget, starting with Director Arnold, who's absent. Director Conroy is absent. Director Garbarino.
Aye.
Director Giudice.
Yes.
Director Grosbull is absent. Director Hernandez is absent. Director Maston.
Aye.
Director Parr.
Aye.
Director Rabbit.
Aye.
Director Rodoni is absent. Director Snyder.
Aye.
Director Stephanie is absent. Director Thier.
Aye.
Second Vice President Hill.
Yes.
First Vice President Cochran.
Yes.
And President Terrio.
Yes.
Thank you. You have 10 ayes.
Great. Thank you all very much. Moving on then to item 10, we have the monthly review of Golden Gate Bridge, traffic tolls, and bus and ferry transit patronage fares. The staff report is on page 69. Jennifer is going to present this item as well as item 11A, which is the monthly statement of revenue and expenses. That's on page 81. And 11B, the monthly statement of capital programs and expenditures. That's on page 99. So Jennifer, go ahead, please.
This is your monthly report, and we've included both April and May since we didn't have April available for the meetings last month. Obviously happy to go through detail, but Joe does plan to do his quarterly and his annual wrap up when we have the June numbers in next month. Overall, as you know, the modes are trending up in traffic and ridership from prior months, but transit still lacks significantly compared to our pre-COVID levels, as we always kind of refer to the graph starting on page 77 of your packet. Again, happy to take any questions or review anything further if you'd like, but Joe knows that he would like to do an annual review and quarterly review next month.
Great, thank you very much. I'll look to my colleagues. Not seeing any hands raised, knowing that we're also moving into these summer months where a shift will take place naturally anyway. Jennifer, thank you for that. Madam Secretary, anyone from the public on this particular item?
We have no speakers on this item or any of these items.
I appreciate that. So that means that we move on. No actions are required for these items. So we'll continue to item number 12 on the agenda, which is closed session. Before we do that, again, want to thank everyone for their patience during our meetings. will be leaving the video meeting for the duration of our closed session item and return after closed session. Members of the public who wish to stay on the line or live stream may do so until our return. And our attorney, Kim Manolius, will take us into closed session. Kim, go ahead.
Sure thing, Chair Abbott, thanks. At this time, the committee will go into closed session to talk about existing litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9A, specifically with regard to the case Marco Flores versus Golden Gate Bridge District.
Thank you, everyone. A reminder to have directors and staff mute their phones, microphones, and their computers and devices and turn off cameras. We'll like you to call into the phone number provided for the closed session report. And we are going to place the public on mute. Thank you. Okay, I can see everybody. All right. Looks like we are back in open session. Yes,
Great.
we are back in open session.
Apologies, I couldn't find the call-in number.
Sorry about that. Well, it's good to have you back. And with that, Jim, can you report out on that closed session, please?
Of course. The committee met in closed session for a conference with legal counsel under 54956.9A of the Government Code regarding the case listed on the agenda, Marco Flores versus Building and Bridge District, and provided its legal counsel with appropriate direction going forward. Thanks.
And thank you for that. We appreciate that. And Madam Secretary, is there anyone from the public wishing to address this committee under item 13, public comment?
We have no further public comment speakers.
Well, with that, we've reached the end of our agenda. So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So
Here,
moved.
here.
I think we had a motion in a couple of here seconds there. So hearing no objections, this concludes the meeting of the Finance Auditing Committee. Thank you, colleagues, for your patience. Thank you to the public for your patience as well. It is slightly before noon, and we will see you all tomorrow. So thank you.
Good idea. See you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
David.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Deal.
Bye.